Josa graduated from the Terran Gore Academy, one of the premier academies in the realm for teaching the arts of the Scion and psionic powers. And she was a newly minted Scion Evoker, one with a specialization in fire. And she was looking forward to getting out in the world and doing some adventuring. Now, she knew that there were some adventuring companies in Crystaldale, and she wanted to get there. But the distance between the academy and Crystaldale was somewhat long, and she didn't cherish traveling the roads alone. So while commiserating with some friends in the bar, in the pub in the local town, it's a college town, lots of pubs, a friend of a friend said that they knew someone that was headed in that same direction. A ranger by the name of Birch. And frankly, Josa couldn't think of a better person to travel across country with than a ranger. Sounded like a great thing to her. It was going to be probably 4 or 5 days on the road, maybe longer depending on the weather. And having a ranger around was going to make that much easier, smoother, and safer. So they agreed to meet the next day and head out at dawn. And they did. Now, the first night, they stayed just off the road, but not too deep into the forest. Josa wasn't what you'd call a really outdoorsy type. The next night, Bert said they were moving into areas that had been known to frequent more highwaymen. So if they could get further off the road, it would increase their chances of not being spotted at night. Now, she had seen that he was good at setting up a camp. She agreed. They moved into the forest. He was able to produce a fire buried in the ground that was quite useful for keeping them warm inside their lean-to and cooking their food, but you'd never see it from the road. Even the smoke was being dispersed properly so that there was no chance at night anyone was going to know that they were there. Josa felt quite secure. And as she lay there staring into the coals, she thought about the fact that soon she'd be out there into the world adventuring. A newly minted Scion Invoker. And that's the last thought Josa had for quite a while. She's not really sure how long. The next thing she knows, she was standing in dirt. She knew that. She heard a male voice say, "Much better without the flesh. The flesh is just so unattractive." She didn't understand what he meant by that. But then she slipped into darkness. When she became aware again, she was standing. She could tell from the shadows behind her, or the ones in front of her, that there was a fire behind her. But she had her back to it. Was she on guard duty? She didn't quite grasp what was going on. She looked to her left, and about 25 or 30 feet away was a skeleton. She screamed, or at least she tried to scream. There was no sound. She reached up to her throat, and her fingers wrapped around raw vertebrae. She pulled her hand back in terror and looked at it, and it was nothing but bone. Gleaming, white bone. And then she slipped into darkness again. The next memory she had, or thought, she was walking down the road. She was one of 4 skeletons, and they were carrying a sedan. And in the sedan was the necromancer Philip. She doesn't know how she knew that name, but she knew that name. And she knew that Philip made her. She knew that Philip decided what she did, where she went, what actions she took. And at that thought, a little flame sparked to life inside her skull. And then she slipped into darkness. And for what she thinks was the next 2 years, time is hard to grasp in this state. That's what her life was like, doing what Philip said. Eventually, he gave her a shield and a mace, and she was put into the army, because he had one by now. Because every person he killed went into his army, and it grew and it grew. They attacked villages, caravans, even bandit camps. They overran them. They ran them down. And they made them one of their own. But each time she became awake, it lasted a little longer. And the fire grew a little brighter. And finally, one day, she found herself on the front lines, breaking through the barricade of a village. They obviously had warning that his army was headed that way, because they tried to put up some defenses, but they were just peasants, with maybe a few dozen militiamen at best. They didn't really stand a chance. And as they broke through the lines and the last of the actual defenders went down, Philip ordered that everyone was to be killed. No mercy, no quarter. Josa kicked the door in on a cottage, went inside. And there was a woman with 2 children cowering against the wall. She took a step in, and she screamed, "No." She took a second step, and she screamed even louder. And at the third step, the people in the room heard her. And they said, the woman that is, "What are you?" And Josa dropped her shield and her mace. And she looked down at her hands. And when she looked up, you could see the flames now inside her eyes. Those empty sockets, dry, lifeless. And she said, "My name is Josa." Then she turned, she walked out the door. Walked into the chaos of the village and the screams and the dying. And saw Philip standing on a wagon giving orders, reveling in the utter chaos he had wrought, in absolute ecstasy. And she did not challenge him. She did not make any speeches. She just walked up to the side of the wagon, pointed her hand, and engulfed him in flames. Now, he'd been smart, and he had some spells up, so the initial burst didn't kill him outright, but it did hurt. And he wheeled around to see what was attacking him, because he was sure that there were no spellcasters in this village. And there was one of his skeletons, its hand aflame, obviously having just attacked him. He was in pain, and frankly, he was just enraged. How dare it do this? So Philip ordered all of his personal guards to kill it. And none moved. Not even a twitch. He panicked and reached for the wand at his side that he always kept for self-defense, so that he'd have some kind of offensive ability if someone got too close. But his hand never reached the wand, as Josa engulfed him in flames again. And this time, his spells did not protect him. And he collapsed on the wagon, a smoldering pile of flesh and flame, his fat cracking in the night. Josa looked around, and all the skeletons had stopped. They'd all come into the square where she was standing and looked at her. And suddenly she knew she was in charge. She really didn't want to be. She wasn't some despot, some necromancer that wanted to rule the world. So she thought for a moment. She picked 4 of the largest skeletons. They'd been ogres in life, and ordered them to her. Then she told the rest, "You will never kill again. Not ever. Not even to defend yourselves. And you will follow the orders of these villagers forever. And you will do what they say forever." Then she rooted through Philip's belongings and put together an outfit. He had gloves and cloaks and things like that, which helped. Boots that would hide her feet. She stuffed extra socks in there to make them look like they had flesh. She layered up so it looked like she had something besides bone under those clothes. The extra insulation really didn't matter to her now. She'd need a mask, which she didn't have yet, but she'd get one of those. She told the villagers the skeletons were theirs now. "I'm sorry this happened. It wasn't my fault. And the man that did it lies over there. Best of luck in your future. May these laborers I've given you make up for those you lost, even if they can't make up for your loved ones." Then she climbed into the sedan and had the ogres pick her up. Again, they began to move towards the nearest settlement. She didn't care where it was or how far, it didn't matter. They didn't eat or drink or sleep. And the fire burned very bright inside her eyes. Because now she had one mission in life. To go find Birch. Because he had taken everything from her. And it was time to return the favor.